Do you remember Savannah, the beautiful, long, blonde-haired girl? Well, she was another one of my friends, coworkers, acquaintances, whatever you want to call it, who decided to end everything. So way back in the day, I was working with Vivid Video, and she was under contract with Vivid Video as well. So we got an opportunity to get to know each other a little bit. I mean, we didn't get to spend a lot of time together. They very rarely had the actresses that were signed to contract with Vivid do movies with other signed actresses. They figured one of their star actresses in a movie would be enough to sell it. So they didn't usually have two actresses that were under contract with them in the same film, although that did happen. You know, I worked with Christy Canyon in a couple movies together, Crazed 1 and Crazed 2, and there were a couple movies that I did with Savannah as well. In addition, at that particular time in my life, I had a home in LA that I was living in, but it wasn't mine. I was renting it, you know, I was just a tenant. And it was kind of difficult with the two kids being recently divorced and my house back in Indiana. It was getting kind of hard to juggle all of this. So one of the things I also did was rent out my house in California to be a movie set. So one day, Savannah was working on a movie in my house, although I wasn't involved in the movie. I just happened to be renting the house that they were renting from me to shoot that movie in for the day. So I have some good memories of Savannah. One of the things that I did when they came to my home was make a few things for people to eat. You know, I wasn't the caterer, I wasn't really getting paid for that, but I wanted people to have some snacks and stuff like that. So one of the things that I had made was deviled eggs, and this is an old family recipe, and Savannah loved them. She loved my deviled eggs, and every time I saw her, she mentioned that. So that always made me feel good, because I've never been one to be very confident about my cooking skills. But she did like my deviled eggs. And I do remember one time on the set, she was doing one of those scenes, you know, one of those action scenes, and they had been doing this scene for probably 10 or 15 minutes, and all of a sudden Savannah says, "Okay, that's it, I'm over it." And the guy kind of went, What do you mean you're over it?" And she goes, "I'm done, I'm over it, enough." Well, that's an interesting way to let everybody know. Okay, so, you know, on one hand, I really had to respect her for standing up for herself and letting people know exactly where she stood. A lot of people did not like her because she had a tendency to be kind of brass. I mean, she wouldn't go out of her way to make you feel good if you were having a bad day. As a matter of fact, she kind of liked to brag and rub it in. I remember when she won at the Adult Video News Awards, I think it was Best Newcomer or something like that. She got up there and said something to the effect of, "And to all of you that don't like me, suck on it," or something like that, you know. So a lot of people did not like her, but I tended to get along with her. There were very few people I didn't get along with, unless they went out of their way to do something stupid, like Paul Thomas, but that's another story for another video. Anyway, one night, I really enjoyed working with Randy Spears. He was probably my favorite actor in the business to work with at the time. And I was recently divorced, like I said, and Randy asked me if I wanted to go out. And I said, "Yeah, that sounds great." So we went out to dinner, and then he got a call, and he said, "Hey, would you like to go on over to Savannah's house?" And I went, "Sure, why not?" So we went over to Savannah's house. And I didn't really expect anything to happen, but it was kind of nice to be able to associate with my coworkers for a change, because this was something that I really didn't get to do. I lived in Indiana. I was very rarely in California, and when I was busy with my kids and my husband, So to have a babysitter for the night, to be able to go out and enjoy the evening and socialize with some of my coworkers was really a nice thing. So we got to Savannah's and we started talking, and pretty soon she brought out a substance, this little white powdery substance, and I'm not into that. Apparently Randy was at the time. From what I hear, he's not anymore, and I'm very glad to hear that. But at the time, you know, people, we all have made mistakes. So that was something they were into. And they partook, and I did not. And it got to the point where it was obvious that this was going to be a night where that was integral to the entire thing. That was the center of attention, was this substance. And I didn't really want to be around it, you know. I had kids, and God forbid that something should happen, that the police would get there and I would be in the vicinity of this, because I really wasn't interested. So I asked Randy if he could take me home, because he was the one who had picked me up at my house and taken me to dinner and brought me over there. So he was very nice. He was very copacetic, and he brought me home, and that was the end of that. And that was the last time that I saw Savannah. I went back to Indiana, and I think it was around Christmas time, or maybe it was one of my children's birthdays. I can't remember exactly. But for some reason, Bud, my ex-husband, their father, had come to visit. And if you know me and you know the business, you know Bud is involved in the business. And so he knew Savannah and all these people. He's still involved in the business. He's an agent, and he books actors and actresses in movies and layouts and so forth. So anyway, he and I had gone out to dinner in Indiana. And he got a text and then a phone call. And, you know, I know he's involved in the business and busy, and I didn't want to intrude or anything, but he says, "Oh my goodness, this is not good." I went, "What's going on?" He goes, "Well, Savannah." And I went, "Oh?" Because, you know Savannah. What's going on with Savannah? And he tells me that she had had an accident in her car. She was out late at night, and this was like 3, 4, maybe 5 in the morning when she drove home and had an accident not far from her house, and drove into her garage and called her manager, Nancy, and then did the bad deed. So I have to be careful how I say this, because YouTube will censor this video, and I'll get a little smack on the wrist if I say something offensive and controversial. So by the time Nancy, her agent, had gotten there, it was done, and she was lying on the floor. So they took her to the hospital, tried to revive her, but there was too much damage, and that was the end. So, I mean, by this time, this was like the third person that I had known that had done this, and it was getting old, to be honest with you. I really cared for these people. And I know a lot of people say Savannah was difficult to get along with, and I can see that. I can see that she was. But to me, it's sad when anybody, no matter how difficult they are to get along with, decides to go down that path. It's so final. It's so violent. It's so devastating. And the third one, it was like, wow, I am so glad that I got out of that business, because I can see how it grinds you up and spits you out. If you saw my video on Paul Thomas and how Vivid Video treated me after Paul Thomas did the things that he did, yeah, I can see how this would drive someone to the edge like that. And I'm so glad that I left and didn't have to put up with that anymore, because it was getting really sad to keep hearing this. So that's when I started my little file in my filing cabinet of all of my friends, coworkers, people that I had met, people that I just heard of even who were involved in that industry who had done that. And I kept that for a couple years, adding to it every time I heard something, until it got to be 23. So, you know, it's very common in that business. And like I've said before, nobody gets into that business because they have all kinds of options and they've lived a carefree life and everything is just peachy keen. No, people get into that business because they often feel like they really don't have any other alternatives. And of all the alternatives that they have, this is what they consider to be their best choice. So, it's just very sad that this kind of thing happens. And of course, it doesn't happen just in that business. This kind of thing happens everywhere. Regardless, it's very sad. And this is why I work so hard on native strength and sharing what I've learned through my YouTube channel. I don't hold back and keep all the goodies for just my books that are for sale or my courses that are for sale. No, I'm sharing it with everybody because I'm trying to help all of us deal with a very imperfect world right now and trying to help us to survive, to get to know ourselves, to wrap our heads around all of the things that have happened to make us into who we are and find out who we were originally, to find our path, why we are here, and to deal with depression, anxiety, grief, stress, frustration, all of those things that comprise the human experience. These medicine wheels have helped me exponentially. They've helped me a heck of a lot more than any antidepressants or therapy. So if they can help you, if they can help one person out there, then it's worth it. I really want to make sure that this doesn't happen again. I'm really disturbed by people doing this, as you can tell. So that's why I work so hard for Native Strength. And Savannah will be sorely missed. She had many good attributes, although she didn't share them with many people. She could be a very nice person. And I think that's just because she had been hurt so many times. I think we can all relate to that a little bit. You let down your guard, and people hurt you, and then you decide, I'm never letting anybody in again. I'm never sharing my kindness with anybody. I'm not going to be hurt again. So that's kind of what she was dealing with. So, my heart goes out to her and other people like her.